Welcome back to the Deep End. It is Friday, February 6th, 2026.
Hello?
And today we are transporting ourselves to the bustling, historic, and, well, let's be honest, often politically turbulent streets of Kathmandu, Nepal.
That's a good way to put it.
Turbulent.
But we aren't there to talk about the mountains, the temples or the tourism. We are zooming in on a specific address, or actually two addresses, that have become the epicenter of this massive national debate.
And it's a debate that feels very local on the surface. I mean, we're talking about a theft and some vandalism, but as soon as you scratch that surface, you realize we're actually talking about the very survival of democratic institutions.
Yes.
It's really about the safety of those who dare to change the system from within.
Exactly. So let's set the scene for you. We are looking at two incidents that have just completely rocked Kathmandu. First, there's a theft at the private residence of the mayor of Kathmandu Metropolitan City, Balen Shah.
A hugely popular figure. Hugely popular. And second, there's vandalism at his municipal office. Now, on a police blotter, these might just look like standard, everyday crimes.
Right. Broken windows, stolen items, maybe a police report gets filed in triplicate and then, lost in a drawer somewhere.
Right. But we are doing a deep dive today because our source material argues that this is not a crime story. Not at all. It is a governance story.
It's a story about the spine of the state, to borrow a metaphor from the piece.
The spine. Yes, that's a great way to frame it. So we are unpacking a really intense piece today. It's titled Security Lapses at Mayor Balen Shah's Residence Expose a Deeper Crisis of State Negligence in Nepal.
It's from the blog Democracy for Nepal.
Right, and it's written by an author who has been chronicling Nepal's democracy movements for decades. This is someone with deep context. And the central thesis here is it's heavy. I mean, it's genuinely alarming.
It is very heavy. The author is not mincing words at all. The argument is that when a state fails to protect its reformers, and we're talking specifically about high-profile disruptive reformers like Mayor Balen Shah, it isn't just a case of, oops, the police were busy.
No.
It is a clear sign of what the author calls systemic rot. It signals that the state apparatus is either unwilling to protect those who challenge power, or it's simply unable to. And frankly, both of those options are terrifying.
They really are. One points to malice, the other to a level of incompetence that's just as dangerous.
Exactly.
So today we are going to map this out in detail. We really want to understand the texture of this crisis. We're going to look at who Balen Shah is and why he's such a target, why our source says he represents a rupture in the system.
That's a key word, rupture.
It is. We're also going to look at the deafening silence from the central government, Singha Durbar. And then there's this really strange, almost Shakespearean political irony involving the home minister that we absolutely need to get into.
Oh, that part is. It's incredible. It adds a whole other layer to this.
It does. And finally, we're going to talk about the message this sends to the next generation of leaders. Because at the end of the day, if the mayor of the capital isn't safe, who is?
That is the question, isn't it? And it's the question that should be keeping people awake at night in Kathmandu and really anyone who cares about fledgling democracies.
Let's start with the events themselves. Section 1. The incidents and the silence. What exactly happened? Let's get into the specifics of it.
Well, the details provided in the source are, they're stark. You have a security breach at the private home of Mayor Shah, a theft. Okay, that's one thing. And then you have vandalism at his official municipal office.
Two separate locations, two separate acts.
Exactly. And let's just pause and think about what that means. In any capital city in the world, London, Washington, Tokyo, you name it, if the mayor's personal home is broken into, that is a Tier 1 security event.
Oh, absolutely. You'd expect sirens everywhere. You'd expect immediate press conferences. You'd expect the police chief to be on TV within the hour saying, we have all our resources on this. We will find who did this. You'd see a perimeter for blocks.
Exactly. You would expect, as the source puts it, immediate alarm bells to start ringing across Singha Durbar, which is, the seat of the Nepali government. It's the nerve center. But that is emphatically not what happened here.
Not at all. The source describes the response as conspicuously muted.
Conspicuously muted. I think that phrase does a lot of heavy lifting. It's so precise. It suggests that the silence isn't just an absence of noise. It's an action in itself. It's a presence of something else.
What do you think that something else is?
I think it's indifference. In a country like Nepal, where the source describes institutions as fragile and public cynicism is already sky high, silence tells a story. It's not neutral.
It's like when you walk into a room and everyone suddenly stops talking. You know something's wrong. The silence is the message. It creates a vacuum, doesn't it?
It absolutely creates a vacuum of leadership.
Yeah.
And into that vacuum, what rushes in? Rumors, fear, conspiracy theories. The source argues that the silence is dangerous because it rapidly accelerates the erosion of public trust.
Because if the state security apparatus cannot, or maybe more chillingly, will not secure the elected leader of the capital city,
Right.
the average citizen looks at that and thinks, well, what chance do I have?
Precisely. It communicates that the state is either absent or it's indifferent. And honestly, indifference is almost worse than malice in this context.
How so?
Well, malice implies they have a plan, a strategy, even if it's a sinister one. Indifference implies they just don't care if the whole system burns down. It's a form of passive abandonment.
And the source gets into this using a medical metaphor, right? It talks about these incidents as symptoms.
Yes, that's the central part of the analysis. The author frames the theft and the vandalism not as the disease itself, but as symptoms of a deeper malaise. The diagnosis, according to the source, is that the state lacks the will to protect those who enforce the law.
And I think we really need to pause on that distinction you just made. It's not that the state lacks the guns or the manpower. That's not the issue.
No, not at all.
It lacks the will.
That is the critical distinction. The capability is there. Nepal has a national police force. It has an armed police force. It has multiple intelligence services. So if the capability exists, but the action doesn't happen, the blockage has to be in the will, the decision-making, the intent.
Which is a political problem, not a logistical one.
It's entirely political. And that brings us to the core question of why. Why would the state lack the will to protect the mayor of its own capital city? To even begin to understand that, we have to understand the target.
Right. Section 2. Who is Balen Shah? Because for our listeners who might not follow Nepali municipal politics that closely, he isn't just some guy who won an election. He's a phenomenon.
He really is. I mean, the source doesn't just call him a politician. It describes him as a rupture in Nepal's political continuity.
A rupture. That's such a strong, almost violent word. It implies breaking a bone or tearing a fabric. It's not a change or a shift. It's a break.
I think it fits, though. For decades, Nepali politics has been dominated by the same rotation of established parties and, frankly, the same faces. The same generation of leaders just swapping chairs every few years.
A political merry-go-round.
Exactly. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, comes Balen Shah. He's a technocrat. He's an engineer by training. He's also a famous rapper. He ran as an independent and won. He has this massive appeal, especially with the youth. He represents this idea of what politics could be.
He's the anti-politician in so many ways, isn't he? He wears the dark sunglasses. He speaks bluntly. He uses data and maps in his presentations. He doesn't do the flowery, empty speeches of the old guard.
Not at all. And the source lists some key descriptors for him that are very telling. Decisive, transparent, fearless. Now, you take those three words and you can immediately see why he would be a threat to a system that thrives on indecision, opacity, and backroom deals.
And that is exactly why he is a target. The source makes this point very, very clearly. He needs security, not just because he's a VIP, but because of who he fights. Since taking office, he hasn't just sat at his desk signing papers.
No, he's been an activist mayor. He has physically gone out into the city to enforce building codes and regulations that have been ignored for decades.
He's gone after illegal constructions, demolishing parts of buildings that violate the law, even if they're owned by powerful people. He's tackled the cartels. He's tried to uproot these deeply rooted corruption networks that control everything from, say, waste management to public land.
He's kicking the hornet's nest.
He's not just kicking it, he is dismantling the hive. He disrupts what the source calls these comfortable arrangements. And I want to linger on that phrase for a second. Comfortable arrangements.
It's a great euphemism for systemic corruption, isn't it?
It is. Think about what that means. There are powerful people, entrenched interests, who profit from the disorder in Kathmandu. An illegal floor on a building pays rent to someone. Cartels dealing in water or sand or whatever, they pay off someone. When Balen Shah comes in and says, no, we're following the law, period, he is directly threatening revenue streams. He is threatening power bases that have existed for generations.
So in that context, providing him with security isn't a perk. It's not like, oh, look at the mayor with his fancy bodyguards. It's not a status symbol.
Not at all.
No. The source emphasizes that for a reformer like him, security is a prerequisite. It's an absolute necessity. It is the cost of doing business when your business is cleaning up the mess.
You have to protect the person you've asked to do the dangerous job.
Of course. If you want someone to clean up a toxic waste dump, You give them a hazmat suit. You don't send them in wearing shorts and a t-shirt and wish them luck.
That's a great analogy. You don't just hope for the best.
And the source argues that the lack of security, in this case, isn't just simple negligence. The author calls it open recklessness. It's basically inviting disaster. It's sending a signal to the cartels, to the corrupt network saying, go ahead, take your shot, we're not watching.
Which is terrifying. And that brings us to a really interesting comparative analysis the source makes. It looks at how other countries handle this exact problem, specifically the United States. Now, usually, comparisons between Nepal and the U.S. can be a bit apples and oranges, but the underlying logic here really holds up.
It does, because it's not about comparing budgets or manpower. It's about comparing the philosophy of protection. The source brings up the United States Secret Service. Now, obviously, Nepal doesn't have a Secret Service with that level of funding or history. That's not the point. The point is to look at the philosophy behind it.
And what is that philosophy?
Proactivity. In the U.S., serious presidential contenders get protection before the election, sometimes long before.
Right. You don't have to win to get the guys in the suits and earpieces.
Yeah.
You just have to be seen as a serious contender, someone who is, gathering momentum.
Exactly. And why? It's not because they hold an official office yet. It's because their influence and visibility make them targets. The American state, in this instance, anticipates risk.
They don't wait for a candidate to get attacked and then say, oh, gee, maybe we should have had a guard there.
Precisely. They look at the threat profile, they see the large crowds, they hear the heated rhetoric, and they act proactively. They understand that the person has become a symbol.
And they realize they're not just protecting a person, they're protecting the democratic process itself.
Yes, that's the crucial part. They understand that if a major candidate is hurt or killed, the election itself is compromised. The democratic process is wounded. So the protection is about protecting the integrity of the system, not just one individual.
So how does the source apply that lesson to Nepal and Balen Shah?
Well, the argument is that Nepal is completely failing to do this. The source argues that Nepal doesn't need to copy the U.S. model wholesale, but the lesson is vital. Balen Shah has what the author calls political gravity.
Political gravity, I like that.
It's a great term. He sucks up all the oxygen in the room. He attracts massive public attention, both positive and negative. That, by definition, creates a threat profile. The Nepali state failed to anticipate a risk that was obvious to literally everyone else in the country.
It feels like everyone knew he was a target, except the very people whose job it was to protect him.
Or, and this is the darker implication that the source keeps hinting at, they knew, and they just didn't care.
Or maybe they even welcomed the risk.
That's the most cynical take, but given the circumstances, you can't entirely dismiss it.
Which segues us perfectly into Section 4. We have to talk about the institutional culprit here, the Home Ministry. Because in Nepal's system, the Home Ministry is the big dog when it comes to internal security.
They are the ones constitutionally mandated to ensure law and order and the security of citizens, especially public officials. The entire police apparatus reports to them. The administrative bureaucracy reports to them. If there is a lapse of this magnitude, the buck stops at the Home Ministry.
There's no one else to point the finger at.
No, this is their direct responsibility. But the source adds a layer of political intrigue here that is just, well, it's juicy, but it's also deeply depressing. It feels like a subplot from a political thriller.
It really does feel like something out of House of Cards or, a Shakespearean tragedy.
It has that feel of betrayal.
Yeah. So there is a specific and complicated relationship mentioned between Mayor Shah and the current Home Minister.
The source doesn't present it as established fact, but it touches on reports and rumors that are widely circulated in Kathmandu's political circles. The suggestion is that Balen Shah himself played a role, maybe a significant one, in recommending or facilitating the current Home Minister's rise within the power structure.
So he may have vouched for him.
Exactly. The background involves a complex web of figures, including influential people like the former Chief Justice Sushila Karki. The idea is that Balen's endorsement carry weight and help this individual secure the Home Minister portfolio.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You're telling me that the man who is currently failing to protect the mayor might have gotten his powerful job, in part because of the mayor's support.
That is the staggering irony that the source highlights. It reframes this entire security lapse. It's not just bureaucratic incompetence anymore.
Well, it's personal.
It becomes a story of betrayal. The source frames this negligence as a form of ingratitude or indifference that is almost malicious in its coldness. It suggests a staggering misalignment of priorities.
It's beyond a misalignment. I mean, if you have a political ally or at the very least someone who helped you get a leg up and you hang them out to dry when their home is robbed and their office is vandalized,
Yeah.
what does that say about you?
It speaks to a profound lack of loyalty, let alone professional duty. It breaks the most basic, unwritten rules of politics. Usually you protect the people who helped you get to the top. It's self-preservation, if nothing else.
Right, because you might need them again one day.
Of course. And because that fundamental norm appears to be broken here, the source asks some really uncomfortable probing questions. It asks, is the state selectively blind when reformers are targeted?
That's the question that just sticks with me. Selectively blind. Is incompetence being used as a mask for something more deliberate?
You know, if a standard party-aligned bureaucrat had a security issue, you can bet it would probably get fixed pretty quickly. The machinery would work. But when a disruptor, an outsider like Balen Shah, has an issue, does the state suddenly drag its feet? Does it look the other way on purpose?
Is it a passive-aggressive way of punishing him for rocking the boat?
That's the implication. The source concludes that whether it is malice, meaning they actively want him to be scared and vulnerable, or just gross incompetence, both are equally damning for the state.
It's a lose-lose for the government's reputation. If you can't protect him, you look weak and ineffective. If you won't protect him, you look corrupt and vindictive.
There's no good explanation, and this really moves us beyond just the fate of Balen Shah, the man. We have to talk about the chilling effect. Section 5 looks at what this means for the future of democracy in Nepal, because Balen isn't just a mayor anymore.
No, he's a symbol.
He's a symbol. He is viewed by many, especially the youth, as a serious contender for national leadership down the road. People openly talk about him as a future prime minister. He represents hope.
He represents the future. He is a prototype for what the next generation of Nepali leadership could look like. Nonpartisan, effective, modern.
So with that in mind, imagine you were a young, bright, honest administrator in some other part of Nepal. Or maybe you're a civil servant, a whistleblower, thinking about exposing a major corruption scandal in your department.
You're idealistic. You want to do the right thing.
Exactly. And you look at what's happening in the capital. You see the most popular, high-profile politician in the entire country getting his house robbed and his office smashed up, and the government does nothing. What are you thinking in that moment?
You are thinking, I am completely on my own.
You are on your own. That is a terrifying, bone-chilling message for a state to send to its best and brightest.
It basically says that if you step out of line, if you try to fix things, if you challenge the status quo, the state will not have your back. You will be left exposed.
It's a powerful deterrent. The source argues that this sends a very clear message that politics in Nepal is a blood sport, and if the state won't provide the rules or the referees, then who is left to enter the arena? Who is willing to play that game?
The source actually lists 3 specific groups who are willing to enter that kind of brutal arena.
It does. It's a very cynical but probably accurate list. The corrupt, the connected, and the cynical.
Let's just unpack those one by one. The corrupt. Why are they safe?
They're safe because they have the money to buy their own extensive private security. Or, frankly, they are often the ones paying the criminals in the first place, so they have nothing to fear. They control the threat.
Okay, connected.
They have the backing of a major political party. They have the party machinery, the youth wings, the cadres. They are protected by the mob aspect of party politics. An attack on them is an attack on the party, and the party will retaliate.
They have a built-in defense network.
Precisely. And finally, the cynical.
The cynical. Who are they?
The cynical are the ones who enter public office and do nothing. They don't rock the boat, they don't challenge the cartels, they don't enforce inconvenient laws, so nobody bothers them. They are safe simply because they are ineffective. They pose no threat to the comfortable arrangements.
So what you're describing is a filtration system that actively filters out the good guys.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a system that selects against competence and integrity. It filters out the reformers, the idealists, the very people the country needs most. And the source reflects on this very deeply. This isn't just about losing one potential future leader in Balen Shah.
No, it's about scaring away an entire generation of potential leaders who are watching this unfold.
It's a form of political natural selection, or maybe unnatural selection. It's evolutionary selection for corruption.
Wow.
And if you select for corruption over 10 or 20 years, what kind of state do you end up with?
You end up with a failed state. Which leads us into the philosophy of all this. Section 6 in our deep dive is about democratic decay.
I think we often have this Hollywood idea of how democracies die. We think of tanks rolling down the street or a general in a uniform seizing the national TV station.
Right, the violent, dramatic coup, the big
Yeah.
explosion. But the source argues, and I think a lot of modern political science back this up, that decay doesn't always happen via tanks. More often it happens through a quiet abdication of responsibility. Quiet abdication. That sounds so much more insidious, doesn't it? It's not a bang, it's a whimper.
It is. It's when the institutions of the state just stop working. They stop doing their core job. It's a slow rot from the inside out. The plumbing gets clogged, the wires fray, and one day the whole house just collapses.
And the source argues that security is a key indicator of this rot.
It's a symbol of intent. It's a litmus test. Does the state stand with the law enforcers? Or does it retreat and look away when enforcement gets inconvenient for the powerful?
And in Balen Shah's case, his enforcement of the law is definitely inconvenient for a lot of powerful people.
Incredibly inconvenient. And so the state's retreat, its silence, is a signal. It's a message to everyone about who really holds power. And the source has this one quote that is just. It's incredibly powerful. A state that cannot protect its visionaries will eventually be governed by its vandals.
Wow. Say that again. A state that cannot protect its visionaries will eventually be governed by its vandals. That is a haunting image.
It is, isn't it? It suggests that if you don't protect the builders, the architects of a better future, then the destroyers take over by default. It's like the laws of entropy applied to politics. Order requires constant energy and protection. Chaos just happens on its own if you stop fighting for it.
And when you think about the vandalism at the municipal office, that's literally vandals trying to govern, isn't it? Trying to dictate what the city can and cannot do through violence and intimidation.
Exactly. When you smash a window at the mayor's office, you are casting a vote with a brick. And if the state allows that vote to count, if it doesn't respond with the full force of the law, then democracy is already dead. You just haven't written the obituary yet.
So the source doesn't just diagnose the problem. It doesn't just complain. It demands action. It lays out a very clear roadmap. Let's get into that. Section 7, the demand for action. What does Democracy for Nepal say needs to happen right now?
They are very clear on this. There's no ambiguity. They list 4 specific concrete demands. And these aren't vague, high-minded requests for better governance. They are actionable steps.
Okay, so what's the first one?
First and most urgently, immediate fortification. Enhance security at the mayor's residence and his office now, today.
So, boots on the ground, put up the cameras, station the guards, a visible deterrent.
Exactly. Physical security. Make it hard for the bad guys. Show a visible presence. The source argues this needs to happen immediately, not after a 3-week committee meeting and a feasibility study.
Makes sense. What's the second demand?
Second, investigation. A transparent and deep probe into both the theft and the vandalism. Don't just file a report and lose it in a drawer. Find out who did it, and crucially, find out if they were sent by someone.
Right. Was this a random act of crime, or was it a politically motivated message?
We need to know if this was organized crime, political intimidation, or both. Without a real investigation, we're just guessing, and that allows the cycle of fear to continue.
Okay, so fortify, investigate. What's the third demand?
Third, accountability. Someone in the Home Ministry needs to answer for this lapse. You cannot have a security failure of this magnitude targeting the mayor of the capital and have everyone just keep their jobs as if nothing happened.
Because that creates a culture of impunity.
Right.
If there are no consequences for failure, there's no incentives to succeed.
Precisely. If the people in charge of security fail to provide security, they should no longer be in charge of security. It's the most simple, basic logic of governance. Heads should roll.
And the fourth one? This one feels the most systemic, the most forward-looking.
It is. Standardization. The source demands the creation of a formal protocol. The argument is that security for public officials shouldn't be based on personal favors or who you know at the Home Ministry.
Shouldn't be arbitrary.
Never. There should be a standardized security framework for high-risk, reform-oriented leaders. If you fit the threat profile, if you're a prosecutor going after the mob or a mayor going after cartels, you get the protection automatically.
That makes so much sense. It takes the politics out of it. It shouldn't matter if the Home Minister likes you or hates you personally. If you're the mayor and you're under credible threat, you get the guards, period.
Exactly. It institutionalizes safety. It turns security into a right for the office holder, not a favor from the party in power. And the source presents these 4 demands almost as an ultimatum. It says anything less than this should be viewed as a complete abdication of duty by the state.
So we've really unpacked this. We've gone through the incident, the silence, the deep political irony, and the terrifying implications for the future of the country. As we start to wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to that final thought from the source. It's so powerful.
The question that just hangs in the air at the end of the piece.
Yes. The author ends with this. The nation is watching. The question is whether the state is awake.
Is the state awake? Or is it sleepwalking into disaster?
It leaves you, the reader, with this incredible tension. Is this silence from the government just a temporary pause? Is it just bureaucratic inertia that will eventually correct itself?
Or is it the sound of a democracy going to sleep? Is it the sound of a state that has quietly decided it's just easier, less trouble to let the Vandals win?
That's the question we want to leave you with today. When the alarm bell should be ringing at full volume and all you hear is silence. That silence is the loudest and most frightening sound of all.
It truly is.
I feel like we should keep going for a bit more here because I feel like we breezed past that ingratitude point, and the more I think about it, the more I believe it deserves a deeper look. It's so central to the human drama of this.
The personal betrayal between Balen and the Home Minister.
Yeah. I mean, think about the signal that sends to everyone else in the political ecosystem. Politics is, at a base level, usually transactional, right? I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's a system of debts and favors.
That is the cynic's golden rule for sure. It's what keeps the machine running, however imperfectly.
But this situation seems to break even that cynical rule. If the reports are true, that Balen helped this home minister rise, and now the home minister is, at best, indifferent to his safety, that's not just a broken rule, that's chaos. That suggests there are no rules anymore.
It suggests a level of political volatility that is incredibly dangerous. If political debts aren't honored, then alliances become impossible to form or trust. And if stable alliances are impossible, then governance itself becomes impossible. It turns every politician into a lone wolf looking out only for themselves.
And a lone wolf is so much easier to pick off than a pack.
Infinitely easier. It reinforces that you are on your own message we talked about earlier, but on a political level. It tells every other politician, don't trust anyone, don't build coalitions based on mutual support, just grab what you can for yourself and protect yourself.
It completely atomizes the political landscape.
And an atomized landscape is the perfect environment for the Vandals to thrive. The cartels, the mafia, the corrupt networks. They are organized. They are united by greed. If the legitimate politicians are all fragmented, isolated, and betraying each other, the organized criminals will walk right through them.
That connects back so directly to the standardization demand too, doesn't it? If you can't trust personal loyalty, you have to be able to trust the system, the institution.
That's the brilliance of that fourth demand. The author seems to realize that the currency of personal loyalty might be bankrupt in Kathmandu. So they are saying, fine, if we can't have loyalty, let's have law. Let's have a protocol that is impersonal, that forces the state to act correctly, regardless of how the individuals in power feel about each other on any given day.
It's an attempt to build a machine that works, even if the operators are broken.
That is a beautiful way to describe constitutional democracy, a machine that is designed to work even if the operators are flawed, broken human beings. But right now, without that protocol, the machine is stalling. It's being overridden by personal pique and political indifference.
I also want to touch on the U.S. analogy one more time, the idea of anticipating risk. It seems so simple, yet so profound.
It does.
In Nepal's context, as described by the source, do we have a culture of anticipating risk, or are we a purely reactive state?
I think culturally and administratively, the Nepali state, like many developing nations' bureaucracies, tends to be overwhelmingly reactive. We build the retaining wall after the landslide has already happened. We buy the new fire truck after the market has burned down.
In this case, we send the security after the theft has already occurred.
If even then. The source is arguing for a fundamental shift in mindset. Anticipating risk requires intelligence. Not just spies, but analysis. It requires looking at a figure like Balen Shah and saying, this man is methodically disrupting a billion-rupee illegal construction industry. Of course they're going to come for him. It's inevitable.
It's not rocket science. It's basic cause and effect. A plus B equals C.
But the state, as the source portrays it, pretended not to see the cause, so they could conveniently ignore the inevitable effect.
That's selective blindness again. It just keeps coming up.
It's a recurring theme because it's at the heart of the problem. The state sees what it wants to see. It sees the peaceful student protesters it wants to arrest. It sees the small business owners' taxes it wants to collect. but it somehow doesn't see the clear and present danger to the reformist mayor of the capital.
It reminds me of that old saying, there are none so blind as those who will not see.
And in governance, that kind of willful blindness is fatal. It's what allows the rot to spread until the whole structure is compromised.
Let's talk for a moment about the vandalism at the office specifically. The source seems to distinguish it quite clearly from the theft at the home. They're not the same type of act.
Not at all. The theft at the home is a violation of the personal. It's a violation of privacy. It's an intimate threat meant to scare the family, to say, we know where you live. But the vandalism at the municipal office is a violation of authority.
It's an attack on the chair itself, not just the person sitting in it.
Yes. The office of the mayor is an institution. It represents the will of the voters. When you smash it up, you are smashing a symbol of local democratic government. It's an act of public insurrection, really. A small one, maybe, but an insurrection nonetheless. It's a physical rejection of legitimate authority.
And if the state doesn't treat it as such, with the utmost seriousness,
Then they are normalizing it. They're implicitly saying, well, it's okay to smash up the mayor's office if you disagree with his policies.
and once you normalize political violence as a legitimate form of expression,
You are on a very fast, very slippery slide to chaos. We've seen this script play out in history over and over again. We've seen it in other countries. Once violence becomes an accepted tool in the political toolbox, democracy packs its bags and exits the room.
that's why the silence is so loud. By not forcefully condemning it, they are, in effect, condoning it.
It's tacit approval. And that is the deepest fear here, that the state isn't just failing to protect its reformers, it's quietly siding with the vandals.
I think we've really stripped this down to the studs now. We've looked at the personal betrayal, the political calculation, the systemic failure, and the democratic philosophy at stake.
It's a grim picture, I admit. The source paints a very bleak portrait, but clarity is always the first step to fixing anything. You have to see the rot clearly before you can even begin to think about how to cut it out.
And Democracy for Nepal has certainly shown a very bright, uncomfortable light on that rot.
They have. Now it's up to the public and anyone listening who cares about these things to keep watching, to keep demanding that the state wakes up and does its job.
Because if the citizens fall asleep, the vandals win by default.
Exactly.
Thank you for going on this extended journey with us. This was not an easy topic, but it feels like a necessary one.
Necessary and extremely urgent.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive. Until then, stay awake.
And stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.